Ladies and gentlemen, if I could have your attention, please. In just a moment, we're going to begin the funeral services of Jerry Rubinberg. For those of you who have not seen the family, please come forward. Let them acknowledge your presence here. It's nice that you came out on such a cold morning. Please take a moment to be sure your cell phones have been turned off, not to disturb the sacred funeral ceremony. And we also welcome those of you who are joining us via live stream. Officiating this morning will be Rabbi Jeffrey Weil from Ezra Abonim, the Niles Township Jewish Congregation. And at this time, we ask everyone to please be seated. Ladies and gentlemen, at this time we are humbled and honored to have the Honor Guard from the United States Army for military honors for Mr. Rubinberg. This time, if I can ask Robert, Andrew, and Matthew to please rise.
United States Army, and a grateful nation. Please accept this flag as a symbol of our appreciation. for your loved one's honorable and faithful service.
At this time, I invite Rabbi Weil to perform the ancient ceremony of Kriya, tearing of the ribbon with his three sons. Then we'll begin the sacred ceremony. Also, we want to thank the representatives from the Honor Guard for the United States Army.
As David Jacobson mentioned, we'll do the tradition of Kriya. Kriya means tearing. And the three sons of Jerry are the three halakhic mourners. The mourners, according to Jewish tradition, they're wearing the Kriya ribbons. And in the Bible, when something calamitous or shocking or sad would happen, our biblical forebears would do that act of Kriya, the tearing of the ribbon, and they'll recite the blessing, acknowledging God as the Dayan Ha'emet, the true judge, before we do the tearing of the ribbons. Adonai, ma Adam v'teda ehu, ben enosh v'techashvehu. Adam lehevel dama. Yamav kitzel over, babok yitzir v'chelit, yatzitz v'chalaf, le'erev yimalel v'yavesh. Tashev enosh adaka v'tomer shuvu v'nei Adam. These are the words of the psalmist saying, Adonai, eternal God, what are we that you would have regard for us? What are we that you would even take note of us? We are a mere breath. Our days are a passing shadow. We come and go like grass, which in the morning it shoots up and is renewed. And in the evening of our lives, that grass fades and withers. But God, you cause all of us to return unto dust, saying, Shuvu v'nei Adam, return, O mortal ones. Would that we were wise. Would that we understood whither we go from here. For when we die, we bring nothing with us, not our riches, not our glory. But God, you say, Shmor tam urei yashar, mark the wholehearted, behold the upright. Those are the ones who shall find shalom, who shall find peace. It's an interesting word, that yashar, mark the wholehearted, behold the upright, the yashar. Upright's an interesting word, but it could also be yashar means straightforward, means consistent, means like going on a straight path, not really being vacillating between one thing and another. And Jerry Rubinberg, he was yashar. He was a straightforward man. You knew who Jerry was. You knew that what Jerry was thinking, that is what he was displaying to the world as well. And that's an important lesson. That's an important life lesson to be emulated as well. At times of happiness and at times of sadness, we turn to our scriptures. There's always something for the moment. And at moments like this, we turn to the 23rd Psalm, which is in our handouts. I will recite it first in Hebrew, and then we'll read it together in English. Psalm 23. Adonai ro'i lo echzar, bino desha yarbitzeni, al meit minuchot yinahaleni nafshi yeshuvev, yancheni v'magle tzedek l'man shemo, gam ki elech begeit salmavet lo irara ki ata imadi, shiftechan mishantecha hema inachamuni, taroch lefanai shulchan neged sorai, dishanta v'shemen roshi kosi ravaya, achto v'chesed yudefuni kol yimei chaya, v'shafti b'veit Adonai le'orach yamim. We read together. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. La kol zman ve'et l'chol chefetz tachat hashamayim. This is the first verse of the third chapter of Kohelet or Ecclesiastes. Conveys this idea, which we're familiar with. We're familiar with these verses, that there's a time and a place and a season for everything under the sun, even when those things that happen under the sun seem to defy reason or explanation or goodness even. But these verses, according to tradition written by King Solomon, assure us somehow that everything is unfolding the way it ought to unfold. For everything there's a season, a time for every purpose under heaven, a time to be born, a time to die, a time to plant and a time to uproot that which is planted, a time to tear down, a time to build up, a time to weep, a time to laugh, a time to grieve, and a time to dance, a time to throw stones and a time to gather stones together, a time to embrace, a time when we must refrain from our embraces, a time to seek, a time to lose, a time to keep and a time to discard, a time to tear, a time to sow, a time for silence, and a time for speaking. And so now we'll hear some speaking, some reflections on the life of Jerry. And it's my honor to call forward Amy and Rob, daughter-in-law and son. Adjust this. Okay, you can move this nice and close to you.
Oh, it doesn't tip down. Okay, guess I'm not quite tall enough. Okay. Hi, everybody. I'm Amy Rubinberg. I'm one of Jerry's daughter-in-laws. I've known Jerry over half my life. 33 years. He was very welcoming to me, and he really enjoyed when Robert and I came to visit him, first in Elgin, and then in Del Webb and Huntley when he moved there. I learned early on that Jerry loved to dance, and at my wedding, he led me in a few ballroom dances. He did this any chance that he could get at any celebration. Jerry was a real people person, and he made people feel welcome. He was always so kind to my parents. My dad was a research person, and when he wanted to buy a new car, he did all his research with Consumer Reports, and he had a stack of papers ready to go to the dealership. Jerry said to him, "Okay, when you're ready to go buy your car, just let me know and we'll go together." So my dad and Jerry went to the dealership. Jerry looked at the big stack of papers that my dad had, and he goes, "Yeah, glad you did all this work, Norm, but we don't need this." See, Jerry was a car salesman. He proceeded to look at the young car salesman, and he said, "Okay, here's what we're gonna do. Give me the price sheet that you have. Let me see it all. Now, first, we're gonna get rid of all the razzmatazz that you have in there that we don't need and all those extra costs. I'm gonna make sure you get your proper commission." And he wrote down a number on the sheet and goes, "Here's what we're gonna pay." He goes, "Now, I know the procedure. I know you need to go talk to your manager and walk off and have a drink and do whatever you have to do to kill time and make us sit here and wait." He goes, "So you go ahead and do that. But when you're done, either we're gonna pay this price for the car or we're gonna go somewhere else and pay this price." Salesman had no clue what hit him, and needless to say, he looked pale. My dad did get the car for the price Jerry wrote down. After my dad died, Jerry was always there for my mom. He kind of was a flirt. But he made my mom feel special. We went up to Makajuan Boy Scout Camp, and Benji was on staff there. It was a long drive up, but we all made it. It was a little bit hard with the walking and everything, but Jerry was so happy to be up at the camp where his grandson was working. We were staying at a hotel nearby, And that evening when we went back to the hotel, he said to my mom, all right, my mom loved Twizzlers, and she had a bag of Twizzlers, and he says, all right, I got a deck of cards. You go to your room, you go get your Twizzlers, you come back to my room, we're going to play some cards and eat Twizzlers, and we're going to enjoy our evening. And they really had a nice time together. Jerry was Jewish, but he wasn't really a religious man. But he did tell me a story about when he was at basic training. He was down at Fort Leonard Wood, and the drill sergeant stood out and said, all right, any of you soldiers that are Jewish, take a step forward. They all looked a little scared. They kind of didn't know what was going on, but he stepped forward. And he goes, okay, today is the holiday of Rosh Hashanah, and all of you are going into the town to the synagogue. Step forward and move out. So he did. So the next week, when Yom Kippur was coming up, the drill sergeant said, okay, all the Jewish soldiers step forward. And if you weren't Jewish last week, you're not Jewish this week. And they all got to go again for services. Jerry always enjoyed celebrating holidays with us, and he was willing to go along with whatever we did. He just wanted to be with family. A little over 7 years ago, Jerry asked me to help move him into independent living. It was getting too hard for him to manipulate around in Huntley. Driving was getting more difficult. Andy just reminded me when he was driving here to move from Huntley, he sideswiped a car on the expressway because he was dozing off. So it was time. It was time. So I found a place in Lincolnwood. I had been working at a skilled nursing facility, and the people in rehab said there's a beautiful place in Lincolnwood called the Carrington, and it just opened up about 5 months ago. So I took him there, and we got a tour, and he looked around, and he said, you're moving me into the Taj Mahal. We talked about what room he was going to get. I said, you know, get the one with the balcony. He goes, I don't need a balcony. I said, but it's got bigger windows, sliding doors. I had him choose the one that faced the courtyard, although the other one did face a car dealership, but we chose the one for the courtyard. I helped him get his room set up. He wanted to bring his big couches from Huntley. I said, no. Here's what we're going to do. No rugs because you can trip. No coffee tables because you don't want to fall into them. And he loved the place. And he didn't have a lot there. We got rid of a lot of stuff, but he was very happy. After we had signed the contract, we walked into the lunchroom with the director because he invited us to stay for lunch. There was a table there of about 4 ladies sitting there, and he walks over with his walker, and he goes, hello, ladies, I'm Jerry, and I'm moving in on the 3rd floor. He made so many close friends there. Dorothy, who he cared for you so much. He had, in the beginning, people kept adding on. They had a round table that was meant for 8 people. They ended up with 10 at the table. Every meal, the Carrington would say, you can't put that many at the table, and nobody listened. And even with Jerry, as big as he was, they fit the 10 people at that table. And he kept gaining more and more friends after that. He even joined the welcoming committee to greet more people because he was so happy. He started poker games there and played Rummy Cube and Canasta, and he made people smile and laugh, and they all became his family. Jerry, you were loved by so many, including myself, and you will be missed.
Okay, I project. How do I describe my dad? He was always friendly, he could talk to anyone. He had a way of connecting to people. It worked for him as a car salesman. He fit him well. But he did not want his sons to sell cars, as it's a tough business. His hope his sons would go to college and find other ways of making a living. Dad loved the Bears, sometimes maybe a little too much. Tired and without energy, he still called me last week after the Bears beat Green Bay at the last second with excitement and energy that I hadn't seen in a bit. So that was a wonderful thing. He loved his kids and his grandkids. He did not always know the best ways to show it. He would push and ask about grades and school performances, sometimes a little too much. For a guy who only got to high school, he wanted to make sure everybody else was doing better. But at graduations and at big events, he was always the proud dad or grandpa. Always. I remember as a kid, vacations to the family house in Lake Geneva, which we did most summers. As a kid, it was a great escape with our grandparents and aunts and uncles. They never really told us it was because money was tight and that was the cheap vacation and that we could do. And quite frankly, all the aunts and uncles provided a lot of extra supervision. They could have some time to themselves too. Dad would take us fishing in the motorboat with one of my uncles or a cousin. And a couple of summers, though, we rented a houseboat on the Mississippi River, and I still remember the brightness of the stars we saw then. Dad wasn't much of a nautical person, but he made it work and really enjoyed having everybody there. Dad was always reliable and could be counted to help with scout trips. I remember going to a Wasapee Scout reservation, and he was one of the adult leaders. On one of the canoe trips, I partnered with him. And let's just say there was a bit of a weight disparity in the canoe. And if you know anything about canoeing, that makes steering a little difficult. We ended up in the water a lot. It was fun. Eventually, I became a scout leader, and when my boys made Eagle Scout, no one was prouder than Dad. After my parents divorced, Dad never missed a pickup time for any of us kids to come spend time with him. He was always there. One of my favorite memories really captures who he was. During college, I got a job, a co-op job. I called Dad and said, is there any way he could help me get a car? He said he'd look into it. When I came home for Thanksgiving break, in classic used car salesman fashion, he had found me the legendary, owned by a little old lady who only drove to church on Sundays car. It was a 1975 Delta 88, an absolute land yacht with a 455 engine. Dad said very seriously, it was good to have a lot of metal around you, it's safer. To this day, I'm convinced that car was trying to pull into every gas station it passed, as it only got 6 miles to the gallon. But it got me where I needed to go. Since Dad died, people have been conveying stories to me on Facebook, and it's amazing to learn things about your father after he's gone. Several people from high school commented that he had sold them their first car. He was the one they trusted. When Dad's friend Carm got divorced, Dad invited him to move in with him. Dad even helped Carm's son, Matt, learn how to drive. In the last 7 years, he had found a community at the Carrington and even started, he didn't have a poker game when he got there. They was like, well, you could try and start one. And he searched and found every person who wanted to play poker. Well, towards the end, they were playing 2 nights a week and had a waiting list of people trying to get into the game. So, very successful. He made many friendships there, and we've been talking with some of the people there, and it's hard, but we're so happy that he had those opportunities, and they all got that time. We'll miss you, Dad.
Thank you, Rob and Amy, for those wonderful, very touching remarks. Thank you so much. There's a really beautiful, very important teaching from the Mishnah from Pirkei Avot, the Ethics of the Fathers, that says that we should receive everyone we meet the sever panim yafot, which basically means with a beautiful face, with a beautiful countenance, like everyone. It says every single individual we should welcome and receive with openness and with a cheerful countenance. Is how it's often translated. Now, be accessible to them. Don't be closed off, and be friendly. It's a lovely sentiment. It's also ironic because the person who said it is Rabbi Shammai, and his reputation actually was not that. His reputation was somewhat different. He was known as as a little bit stodgy, to say the least. He was Rabbi Hillel's intellectual foil. There's two different schools, Hillel and Shammai. And whereas Hillel was understood and is understood to be flexible, Rabbi Shammai seemed brusque at times. Whereas Hillel was sensitive, Shammai was a tough love kind of guy, it seems. I've thought about this, like the dichotomy between Shammai's teaching and how he presented himself according to Talmud. I don't think it means that Shammai was not authentic when he taught us to greet others cheerfully. No, it just means that there were various aspects to who the man was, all genuine, all reflective of Rabbi Shammai's personality, all authentic. Jerry was an authentic man. He was an authentic person. He was true to himself, completely unpretentious. Like Shammai, I think, like you knew where Jerry stood on things. You knew what he was thinking. There was rarely any doubt about that. He said what was on his mind in his own fashion, in his own manner. But he was also absolutely a complete natural, as Rob and Amy were suggesting, as everyone who knew him knows. He was a natural when it came to greeting others with a cheerful countenance, at least with an openness, with a friendliness that was completely accessible. Whether it was at the car dealership or dealerships, at the Carrington, on the street, wherever, with family and with strangers, he possessed a natural social ease that is rare, actually. He could comfortably chat with anyone. I'm not sure really about Rabbi Shammai of the first century, if he was able to practice what he taught, but Jerry Rubinberg, 2,000 years later, certainly did. Everyone was greeted with a cheerful countenance. He was an only child of Alice and Irv. Their household in Rogers Park was a stable home, but his parents were not the warm and cuddly type, not the type to at least outwardly shower their only child with a lot of effusive love and affection. Jerry graduated from Sullivan High School, and then he enlisted, spending those years in France with the army, as Amy described. He loved those years in France. In addition to working his desk job, he enjoyed Paris. He had fun. He explored the continent. Upon returning home after those 3 years in 1963, he worked for a while in computers as a computer operator, working with big computers. He soon married Myra and became a dad to Rob, Andy, and Matt. Computers were not a good fit. He realized that. He needed to be around people. And so that's when he started getting into the car business, selling cars new and used. He preferred selling the latter. And by the way, that story about Amy getting your dad that car is very instructive for all of us. Thank you for that. Thank you, Jerry, for that. I had the opportunity to talk with Jerry at the hospital a couple weeks ago. And we were talking about his career, and I commented to him, to be a successful car salesman, particularly a successful used car salesman, you have to really engender trust. And Jerry responded, I'm a trustworthy guy, which I like. In 1970, the family moved to Streamwood, the only Jewish family there. But the 3 sons, they made sure that they became B'nai Mitzvah. Jerry worked for dealerships in St. Charles and then in Elgin. He preferred the customers out there in that part of Chicagoland. He found that their unpretension, he related to that. That was something that he appreciated, that sort of straightforward attitude, straightforward blue-collar attitude, if you will. He liked that more than what he might have found in this area, quite frankly. He had received offers to work in management. He declined, again, knowing himself, sort of knowing who he was. He knew what he wanted and what he was good at. Managing from an office would not suit him as well as working the showroom, working directly with those customers. He was content there dealing directly with the people. Life in Streamwood was typical, as Rob was alluding to, of middle America in the 70s and 80s, the boys playing in the neighborhood and so forth. He was, as you mentioned, a reliably present father. On weekends, of course, watching his beloved bears. I love this bears display right here. And on the picture, oh, not that picture, but another picture I think I saw of him. He loved to wear his bears' clothes, and he'd settle into the big black leather chair to watch a game on the weekends, perhaps a son beside Jerry's large frame. It's a great image. As you said, he just wanted to be with family. And it was his sons back then, and as the family grew, that grew too. He loved being with his family, his main people, his sons and Amy and Hannah, grandchildren Adam, Ben, and Leah. He was a devoted stepson as well to Eleanor, and stepbrother to Alan and Harriet, and to Lauren and Frank. And he was a beloved uncle to nieces Amy, Becky, and Jenny, and more. He appreciated the expansion of this family, as families do, how it expanded over the years. Wishing he could have attended Adam and Kristen's wedding recently, Mazel Tov, and asking Leah, I think you told me at family gatherings, I think you said this, where's the boyfriend? That would be Mark. So it's great. It's his way of putting it, but his way of embracing too, and being concerned and interested and happy for you. As families grow, different types of people enter the family orbit as well. And Jerry would roll with it all, with whomever. He was the same guy. This is his authenticity. The same guy, whether interacting with a customer in Elgin or with a family member in Hyde Park, Jerry was always Jerry. And yes, that Jerry could be direct. Unvarnished is a word that came up when we were talking a couple of days ago. Opinionated, he didn't bother to filter. Honestly, filtering takes so much energy anyway. But he cared deeply. There's no question about that. He'd ask what you were up to, what kind of education you were pursuing. Rob mentioned that he had a high school diploma. He didn't go further. He wanted to make sure that his grandchildren, pursued important things educationally and otherwise. What you were planning for the future, what you were pursuing. He wanted to know. And yes, those questions may have felt heavy at times because we all of us, on some level, want to make our elders proud of us. But for Jerry, all those questions and the expectations, I guess, just illustrated his care. He wanted it all to go well for you. And he was proud, as you said, proud of all your endeavors, academic endeavors, professional achievements, hiking adventures, relationships, and so forth. He celebrated your, as one of you put it the other day, your victories, the victories of the family. Your victories were his victories. This was his manner of love and care. In recent years, it seems that Jerry might have begun to express himself differently, in new ways. Perhaps he was talking more openly. In particular, he expressed gratitude for all the good that so many of you brought to him, literally brought to him like stolen cookies or that sort of thing. But your outreach to him, your attentiveness to him, he was grateful. Grateful surely for those Poochie's lunches, which I love to think about that with Jerry, Rob, and Ben, and Maggie, 3 generations of Rubinbergs at the Carrington. It's important for us, for all of us, to maintain relationships with our elders as we ourselves reach adulthood. And that is a gift, honestly, that Jerry's living into his mid-80s gave to all of you. He was not the healthiest person. He had his health challenges, but the fact that he lived to the age that he lived allowed your relationships with him to develop and to evolve, sort of more adult to adult, and that's a gift. Over the last few years, as you mentioned, he was beloved at the Carrington. he told me how warmly, told everyone how warmly he was received, that they would say, he'd be walking down the hall and people would say, "Hey, Jerry." And it sort of reminds me of like when Norm would walk into the bar at Cheers. Norm. And he was on that welcoming committee, which is honestly not at all surprising. He was a natural playing Rummy Cue. And I think that game, that poker game, was referred to formally as Jerry's game at the Harrington. So that really says a lot. Over the years, as we age, our worlds narrow, and the things that we've loved to do and enjoy, it becomes more difficult in some ways, many ways to do that. And so it's what we call a machaya from like the word chaim, to life. It was a machaya, a life-giving thing, something that brought life, something affirmative, that Jerry was alert enough, Rob, as you mentioned, to watch that game, that epic game between the Bears and Green Bay, a game for the ages last week. What a great, very late, very, very late in life moment for a lifetime fan. And also a machaya, I think you said it was the night before he died, Amy's nephew Josh visited Jerry with pie. He got a slice of pie. And it's a very special moment as well. It says something special about Josh certainly wanting to visit Jerry, and Jerry was happy and grateful, and he fully enjoyed the pie at that stage. And why not? There's a Jewish teaching that encourages us to be the same on the inside and on the outside, there should be consistency in our characters. We shouldn't be different. We should be whole. That also is yashar, that wholeness, like there's no rupture between what's in here and what we're presenting to the world. And that is very important because our personalities and ourselves is considered to be a gift from God, a divine gift. Jerry was that kind of person. He was the same within and beyond himself. And that is one of his great life lessons. Unfiltered, yes, and friendly, and caring, and proud, authentic. May we, during this time of the year, ending one year, beginning a new year, it's a time of reflection, may we heed the lesson that he has bestowed to us, that and others as well. Zichrono livracha, may his memory always be for blessing. Amen. Leda hi reshit, uftira tachlit hachaim kamasahem, kahalicha kitzmicha mishalav l'shalav. Birth is a beginning, death a destination, and life a journey, a going, a growing from stage to stage. And the life journey of Jerry Rubinberg has now reached its ultimate destination. And so, O God, into your care we entrust his spirit. For you keep faith with your children in death as in life. Sustain all of us, O God, that we may meet with serenity the mysteries that lie ahead for us, knowing that when we walk through the valley of the shadow of death, we will know that you, O God, will be with us as a loving friend in whom we put our trust. You, O God, are the light of our lives and our hope for eternity. Please rise for the El Malei Rachamim, the memorial prayer. Rob, I'm sorry. El mele rachamim, shochein bamromim, hamatzei menucha nechonam, tachat kanfei hashchina, im kedoshim u'tohorim, kezohar harakia masirim, et nishmat, Chaim Yehuda ben Yitzchak HaLevi, Shahalach le'olamo. Baal harachamim yasirehu beseter knafav le'olamim, v'yitzor b'tzor ha'chaim et nishmato. Adonai hu nachalato, v'yanuach b'shalom al mishkavo, v'nomar. Amen. Compassionate God, eternal Spirit of the universe, grant perfect rest in your sheltering presence to Chaim Yehuda ben Yitzchak HaLevi, who has entered eternity. O God of mercy, let him find refuge in your eternal presence and within the shadow of your wings. Let his soul be bound up in the bond of everlasting life. God is his inheritance. May he rest in peace, and we say, Amen. You may be seated.
Ladies and gentlemen, the interment service will continue at Memorial Park Cemetery, located at 9900 Grosse Pointe Road here in Skokie. For the information about Shiva, there are several places and times. Please look at the service folder, and for memorial contributions to Kehilat Shalom, that would be appreciated. For those of you who are joining us via live stream, that information can be found on the funeral home's website. For those of you who will be driving in the funeral procession to the cemetery, the procession will be forming in the parking lot. Please obtain an orange safety funeral sticker to place on the right-hand side of your windshield. Have your bright lights and hazard lights on at all times. For additional measures of safety, we will be providing a car in the back of the procession to hopefully keep other cars from entering the procession. Please use your horn liberally as you're going through the intersections, and please do not speak or text on your cellular phone while driving to a cemetery. At this time, I invite the family members other than his 3 children to come forward as we escort the casket of Jerry Rubinberg along with his family to the hearse, and everyone may return to your cars. Please rise.